Friends, St. Paul said, "Let that mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus." And when we stop and think about the wonderful things that Jesus did, how it was that he could heal the sick and feed the multitude and even raise the dead, the idea of having the same mind is attractive to us. For there is none who would not like to do what Jesus did. There are many situations in life when we feel inadequate to solve our problems, when we feel incapable of doing the things we are called on to do. And because of this, we all are searching to find a power greater than we are, a power that can help us to do the things that we would like to do. Jesus explained to his followers that he of himself could do nothing. It was the Father within him who did the works. Jesus had found an inner source of spiritual power that he could draw on. And we should be encouraged by the fact that Jesus told us the same power was in all men that was in him. So those of us who have studied the meaning of his words and have tried to understand this thing called life have desired to discover within ourselves this spiritual essence, this Father within us, this power that can heal and make whole. Now, sometimes the very simplest things in life will teach us the greatest lesson. Perhaps there is a good illustration in the common magnet, an illustration that will help to explain our oneness with God and help to reveal to us the unlimited power of a spiritual magnetism which we all possess. All of us have seen a magnet. Perhaps we have wondered at the invisible power that makes the needle turn toward the North Pole. To those who do not understand the power of magnetism, it is a mysterious thing that the compass needle should always turn toward the North Pole. But if we understand the way it works, not only does it remove the mystery, it provides us with a better understanding of the relationship between our thinking and the mind of God. It isn't by an accident that the compass needle turns to the North Pole, for there is an intimate relationship between the needle and the pole that draws it. This relationship is explained when we realize what it is that the magnet does to the needle. The magnet makes the needle like itself. The needle is composed of countless numbers of tiny particles called molecules, and these particles are in a constant state of motion. The reason that the needle is pulled toward the pole is because the magnetism of the North Pole moves all these tiny particles in the piece of steel in such a way that they move in the same direction, and in the same direction as the particles or the molecules in the North Pole. And when these tiny particles in the compass needle are moving in the same direction, when they are moving with the same motion as the particles in the North Pole, then there is an activity in each of them that is exactly alike. The magnetic power of the North Pole directs the action of the molecules in the needle that is drawn to it. It is just as if the magnetic power of the North Pole were flowing through the needle and directing its course. For you see, the needle then is being guided by an invisible power, and a power that is greater than it is. This is an important thing to consider in the relationship between the needle and the magnet. Before the magnetic power began to direct the tiny particles or the molecules of the needle, all these molecules were going in different directions. and they were in a state of confusion. They were active, all right, but their activity was not pointed in one given direction. Now, just as soon as the invisible power of the magnet begins to flow through the molecules of the needle, they are brought into harmony and into order, and they begin to move as though they were one with and a part of this invisible force. It is wonderful to realize that a magnetic force at the North Pole, thousands of miles away, can reach into the heart of a needle at such a great distance and bring all its inner parts into harmony and give it purpose and direction. Let's see how this illustration from nature would work to teach us a great spiritual lesson. Instead of thinking about the North Pole as a magnetic center that draws needles, let us think of the mind of God as a North Pole for each one of us. It is a magnetic force that draws everyone upward and onward. Just as we think of God as the universal magnet, let us think of ourselves as being the compass needles which can be guided by this divine intelligence when we permit it to magnetize us. Now let us remember that before the compass needle pointed to the North Pole, the molecules in it were in a state of confusion. Now isn't this pretty much like our own minds before they become magnetized by the mind of God? Our thoughts are like the molecules. They are in a state of confusion because each one is trying to go on its own, so to speak, as though it were detached from the central power. Our fears are pushing us one way, our desires are pulling us another way, until hope itself becomes frustrated with despair, and we don't know which way to move. But if we would just walk apart for a moment, just for a moment of prayer, and say, as Jesus did, Father, thy will be done, not mine, then the same thing would happen to us in an instant that happens to the needle when the magnetic power begins to make it right inside. And let's be comforted by this thought. The magnetic power of the North Pole did not judge the needle. It didn't ask it whether it had been good or bad, or whether or not it had made mistakes in the past, nor did it make it wait for a long period of trial or endurance. It simply made everything all right by its own presence, and it did this in an instant. Now, the magnetism of God is just like this. It doesn't test us, find out whether or not we are worthy of its presence, nor does it ever withhold itself until we have proved ourselves worthy, nor does it ask us whether or not we have been good or bad. It stands eternally ready and more certain than the North Pole to put things right in our lives and in our minds. And how simple and how right all this seems